We are told 1,000 times a day that freedom is a purchase, a click, a new country, a new body, a new filter. We are sold the idea that once we have enough options, enough distance, enough shine, the ache will finally quiet down. And then a song like Freedom by Rain Bordo, Matteo Balaban's trembling rain-soaked prayer, comes along and gently, devastatingly proves the opposite. Real freedom, this song whispers, is not a place you arrive at. It is a place you were once carried away from. And everything after is the long attempt to find your way back with your arms full of bruises and your mouth still trying to remember how to ask for what it needs. The song opens with the smallest possible frame, a fourth-floor window beside the railroad. Grew up by the railroad, counting all the trains. View from my living room, only roads and open field. In 10 sparse syllables, Balaban sketches an entire cosmology. The railroad is never neutral. It is the river that both feeds and steals. Every passing wagon is a story that did not stop for him. A life he could have lived if someone had opened the door and said, "Come." Yet the boy does not feel poor. He feels chosen. He loves the clouds gathering like guests who never overstay, loves the low thunder of rain the way other children love applause. This wasn't much, he says, almost embarrassed by how easily happiness once fit inside poverty. But on the 4th floor, I called this luck a home. That single sentence is a quiet miracle. A child who can turn concrete, noise and repetition into a kingdom because no one has yet taught him the mathematics of shame. For him, freedom was not space, it was permission. Permission to stare for hours, to count without purpose, to feel the rain on the glass as if it were touching his own skin. Living room view was my freedom, where fields touched the clouds. Forever in that state of mind, free from sadness and lies. The phrase, free from sadness and lies, slips past, almost unnoticed, until you realize what it actually means. Sadness and lies are things the adult world manufactures and then forces you to wear like ill-fitting clothes. Childhood, in Rain Bordo's memory, is the brief season before the tailoring begins. And then the chorus arrives and the temperature in the room changes. Take me home because in that view I want to fade. Take me home because the world is an empty place. Take me home where I can cuddle until I die. Just take me home, Peter Pan. I promise I'll behave. These lines are so naked they almost embarrass the listener. Fade is not suicidal. It is the wish to dissolve back into a place where the self no longer has to be defended, explained, or apologized for. Cuddle until I die is maybe the most intimate desire an adult can still admit to without flinching. The fantasy of a love so safe that dying inside it would feel like falling asleep. And Peter Pan, eternal, reckless Peter Pan, becomes the only possible saviour because he is the one literary figure who looked at adulthood and said, "No, thank you." The promise, "I'll behave," is the knife twist. Somewhere along the line, the child learned that his natural volume, his natural weather, his natural need was classified as misbehaviour. The plea is not just take me home, it is take me back before I learn to punish myself for taking up space. The second stanza deepens the wound without ever raising its voice. Clouds tell me the truth about the wind, telling me he will bring the rain. Well, wind doesn't know I was born in the rain, on the same station where she took the train. She walked away from the rain, walked away from the pain, walked away with train, making her a part in history, all in vain. She is not his mother. She is the woman he loved with the terrifying totality that only the very young or the very brave still possess. The repetition, walked away 3 times, like a tongue worrying a broken tooth, is the sound of memory refusing to let go. She chose the dry, scheduled, forward-moving world of the train over the wet, unpredictable world of staying. The phrase, "all in vain," is merciless in its compassion. Her departure did not save her from pain. It only relocated it. Some storms travel in the overhead compartment forever. The rain, once a childhood ally, is now contaminated by memory. Every storm since has carried her silhouette disappearing around the bend. And yet Balaban never turns the song into accusation. There is only sorrow, and beneath the sorrow a child's bewildered question. What was so unbearable about my weather that you had to leave it? Then, almost impossibly, the final verse opens a window and lets light in. When I get home, I'll start over. When I get home, I'll be sober. I'll tell everybody that I care. I'll paint my soul without a scare. When I get home, I'll tell the old man hi. Because it doesn't matter how much I run, there is someone who makes my song sung. This is no longer regression. This is revolution disguised as homecoming. Sober might be literal, might be metaphorical, might be both. What matters is the promise to stop anesthetizing the parts that still ache for connection. I'll paint my soul without a scare is Rain Bordo's entire artistic manifesto compressed into 7 words. To create from the raw, unfiltered place, to stop editing the palette because someone once said certain colours were too much. The quiet, "I'll tell the old man he" carries a lifetime of unsent letters, of swallowed pride, of love that learned to walk on tiptoe. And the final line, "There is someone who makes my song sung," is one of the most luminous acts of faith in contemporary art. After every departure, after every slammed door and departing whistle, there remains at least one witness willing to stay until the last vulnerable note. Sometimes that witness is a friend, sometimes a lover, sometimes the child you once were refusing to be murdered by your own growing up. Placed beside Balaban's visual and performance work, the song feels like the secret diary every public piece has been trying to protect. The installations in which he slowly unwraps himself from layers of logos and slogans until he stands trembling and bare. The performances where he lets strangers touch the scars he usually hides. The collective rituals where silenced voices are handed the microphone. All of them are attempts to earn the right to sing these exact lines in public. Every time Rain Bordo risks exposure, he is reaching backward and forward at once. Backward to the 4th floor window, where the rain never asked him to be smaller. Forward to a future where tenderness is no longer classified as weakness. In a culture that monetizes armor, that rewards the curated wound and punishes the uncurated heart, freedom is a quiet insurrection. It insists that the most radical thing a person can do is refuse to outgrow their own need. It dares to say that real chains are not the ones society clamps on us. They are the ones we forge ourselves the day we decide that being loved without explanation is a childhood privilege we have to surrender in order to be taken seriously. Matteo Balaban does not hand us a solution. He hands us something infinitely more precious. Permission to keep longing out loud, to keep standing at the window counting trains that never stop, to keep calling for Peter Pan long after the world has insisted we are too old for fairy tales. Because maybe, and this is the song's deepest, softest rebellion, growing up does not have to mean growing past the part of you that still believes someone, somewhere, will hear you singing in the rain and decide to stay. That is the freedom Rain Bordo is fighting for. Not the freedom to leave, but the freedom to be the storm and still be chosen. Not the freedom to arrive somewhere new, but the freedom to come home soaking wet, shaking, and finally unafraid to take up all the space your heart needs. And if that is not the bravest definition of freedom any of us will hear this decade, I do not know what is. And there are the two faces of freedom for Balaban. If freedom is the song of a child who once knew perfect safety inside a fourth-floor window and has spent adulthood trying to crawl back into that light, then Alone is the song of a girl who mistook freedom for the absence of every boundary and discovered, too late, that some doors, once opened, refused to let you return the same. Together they form two chambers of the same aching heart beating inside Matteo Balaban, Rain Bordo, one looking backward toward innocence, the other staring into the wreckage that innocence can become when it believes freedom means never having to come home. First, the English translation of Alone, Summer. Mum, I was alone and so terrified. The only thing that ever hugged me was the colour white. A single pulled line meant freedom from the chains of my own unfuckedness, from my own fear of love. I was scared to surrender and to dream. You used to tell me that roses are most beautiful when we walk together through the garden. I can't see the roses anymore, Mum, but I have felt the thorns, felt them deeply. Please, Mum, hold me. I promise I won't sin anymore. I won't keep hurting my broken soul. This roof I live under is collapsing. Let me back into the house, please, Mum. I'm left alone with my bangs hanging in my face. Mum, try to understand me. I believed the wrong stories. Mum, please open the door. I know I messed up. I broke your heart with my actions, and I never decorated you with kisses. You deserved that decoration. Mum, please? I didn't know how to play with my demons. I took all the wrong directions. But, Mum, I'm knocking now. Mum, please open. I promise I'll run and eat clean. I'll pray more, and I promise I'll laugh again. Mum, please, open the door. Please, I'm here. I'm knocking. The voice in Alone is not the child at the window counting trains. It is the teenager or the young woman who decided that the window was a cage and smashed it. Where freedom longs for the safety of limitation, Alone reveals what happens when limitation is rejected completely. The white colour that hugged her is cocaine. The pulled line is the moment she told herself she was finally free. Free from the terror of intimacy. Free from the fear of being seen imperfect. Free from the suffocating rules of a mother's love. She thought surrender was weakness. She thought numbness was power. And for a while it worked. The drug wrapped its cold arms around her and whispered that this was liberation. No more fear of love because there was no more capacity to feel love. No more fear of abandonment because she had abandoned herself first. But the price arrives dressed as thorns. Roses, the symbol her mother once used for gentle, disciplined beauty, have disappeared. All that remains is the pain they leave behind. The girl who once walked the garden paths holding her mother's hand now stumbles barefoot through the same garden at night, bleeding, unable to find a single bloom, only the sharp reminder that every escape route has its tax. The chorus of pleading is almost unbearable in its regression. Please, Mum, hold me. I promise I won't sin anymore. Let me back into the house. She is not speaking as an adult asking for forgiveness. She is speaking as the terrified child she never allowed herself to finish being. The promise to run and eat clean, to pray and laugh again, is the sound of someone who has finally understood that freedom is not the opposite of rules. It is the opposite of orphanage. The real prison was never the mother's love. It was the belief that love could be outgrown. Compare the two, please, side by side, and the mirror becomes merciless. In Freedom, the speaker begs Peter Pan, "Take me home. I promise I'll behave." In Alone, the speaker begs her mother, "Open the door. I promise I won't sin anymore." Both are children who discovered that the world punishes softness, except one tried to protect the softness by never leaving the fourth floor, while the other tried to protect it by burning the house down. One became a quiet hoarder of tenderness. The other became a reckless spender until the currency ran out. Both songs end at a threshold. In Freedom, the threshold is internal. There is someone who makes my songs sung. The speaker has learned that home can be carried inside the chest if someone, anyone, is willing to listen without leaving. In Alone, the threshold is literal. A locked door, a mother on the other side, the sound of knocking that may or may not be answered. We do not know if the door opens. The song ends, suspended in the terrible hush between the last "I'm knocking" and whatever comes next. That uncertainty is the entire point. Some freedoms, once taken too far, leave you on the wrong side of the only door that ever mattered. Together, the songs form a diptych of what freedom is not. Freedom teaches that freedom is not the mere absence of walls. Some walls are the only thing keeping the sky from crushing you. Alone teaches that freedom is not the mere absence of rules. Some rules are the only thing keeping the thorns from tearing you apart. One speaker never left the garden and still feels homeless. The other left the garden, chased every horizon, and discovered that homelessness can become a chemical state, a white dusted room where no one, not even you, recognizes the child you used to be. Both end in the same posture, small, shaking, promising to be good if someone will just let them in. That is the brutal, beautiful secret Bordo keeps returning to in all his work. Whether he stands naked in a gallery, shedding branded fabrics, or sings these two mirror songs into a microphone that trembles with his breath, the message is the same. True freedom is not the right to leave. It is the right to return and still be recognized and still be held, even when you arrive bleeding, even when you arrive empty-handed, even when you arrive years too late with nothing to offer but the promise, "I will never again confuse running away with being free." In the end, both voices, Peter Pan's lost boy and the thorn-scarred girl, are knocking on the same door. One from the inside, begging to be allowed back into childhood. One from the outside, begging to be allowed back into love. And somewhere in the silence between the two songs, Bordo leaves the door unlatched. Just enough. Just enough for all of us who have ever mistaken freedom for the right to destroy the parts of ourselves that needed holding the most.